Well, welcome everybody to the second and unfortunately the last day of the Nat Assault 2021 Symposium. If you've just joined us today, believe me, you're in for a jam-packed day to learn and to teach each other as we go out throughout the day. Now, if you missed yesterday, do not be too concerned because we have recorded all sessions and they are available for you to view on the platform until the end of May. If you were with us yesterday, welcome back. It's so good to see all of you. My name is Tami Ngadimeng and I'll help steer the conversations for today until the lunchtime break. We have been watching the social media pages and unfortunately you have disappointed us yesterday. So we'll allow you to try again. If you'd like to talk about the symposium, please do so using the hashtag NatSilt21. That is NATSILT21. And if you'd like to engage in conversations with me, you're more than welcome to do so as well on Instagram. My handle is @Tami Ngadimeng. Let's try and see if we can get ourselves trending. I think the beauty is yesterday, the Minister Lindiwe Sisulu was at least trending. So something about water and sanitation was happening. Let's try and get the symposium to be a conversation for everybody to engage on. I know that there's a lot of speaking and you would love to take notes. The platform does allow you to type out your notes and export them. So feel free to use that. On the platform as well, we've tried to make it as live as possible with all the elements. So we know that networking is quite important for humans. If you'd like to do that, just update your profile and please go to the meeting hub where you can engage in conversations with people and network within the meeting hub. With that, I think, let's get into today's program. Our first speaker holds two roles, really amazing guy, holds two roles. He's currently the Chief Director of Infrastructure Operations and Maintenance within the Department of Water and Sanitation, but he's also been appointed as the Acting Deputy Director General as well at the moment. And he is responsible for managing the operations and maintenance of all bulk raw water infrastructure. I hand you over right now to Mr. Leonardo Manis.
Thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm greeting you here from a beautiful Kranskop in the Limpopo. It looks quite sunny out here and it's quite warm actually for winter as well. But my role is going to be just to talk a little bit about siltation, I guess, not about the weather. So we will go into that one. So I'm not seeing my slides as yet, but it's on the screen now. That's brilliant. The siltation management strategy for large dams in South Africa, that is what it's all about. And how did it come about? Simply, we had a situation in the department where we were requested by various people with interest. I don't know if it's business interest, but let's dredge the dams. And that was the demand that actually came through. And we said we have to look for a cost-effective siltation management in the country, especially for the large dams that we take responsibility for to sustain the national storage, because dredging is an option. We don't disregard it, but it cannot be the only way going forward. So in my next slide, I'm giving you just an overview in terms of the infrastructure that we take responsibility for and what we are all about when we say that we are managing the operations and maintenance of our business. Now, it is a revenue-based business. It's not that all taxpayers in the country is paying the salaries and the operations of these bulk raw water systems in the country. But it's about the fact that we based it on the revenue we generate according to our raw water pricing strategy from the various governance schemes. And we then do the operations and maintenance of interbasin transfers, because South Africa would not have water in the times when it's not raining if we didn't have our government water schemes. So these government water schemes keeps the rivers flowing, keeps water in the dams when the times when it's not raining, and release it generally as it goes along. So that's the purpose of the storage. And we also then do bulk raw water supply through pump stations, pipelines, canal systems, tunnel systems. But today, we're not going to talk about the other infrastructure, a little bit more about the 320 large state dams that we take responsibility for, it actually has come up to be now 321 to be one that has been added also in the Mpumalanga area. On the picture that you see on your left, your right bottom side is the Berg River Dam. Now, when I talk about the infrastructure operations that we do, is that it only rains in the winter in the Western Cape. Obviously, there was a time a short while ago when everybody was talking about day zero in the Western or the Cape Town area, which was perhaps a little bit overemphasized to the extent where it was not completely reflecting the situation on the ground. But what we had a real critical situation that we faced was more on the West Coast area, because Saldanha Bay was without water because Misverstand Dam, which was downstream in the Berg River, or it was completely dry, and we had to do these releases out of Berg River to allow Saldanha Bay still to get water. Now you can understand from that example that's given the importance of these magnificent structures, civil engineering structures that we call dams, in the whole concept of managing water resources in South Africa. If we didn't have it, it would have been completely impossible to sustain the economy as well as the livelihoods of South Africans as we go along. But the fact is, it's so easy to lose the functionality of these dams through this phenomenon called siltation. On the next slide, this map you saw yesterday also when Naidu was doing his presentation, and it gives an understanding in terms of which regions and catchments in South Africa would be more prone to siltation than others. And you can see that where it's brown, those would be the areas where there's a lot of or not so much soil covering, and siltation is a phenomenon that will be more prevalent in that area, causing the dams in that space to be um, under threat of the fact that it could lose its capacity. This information this map has been generated with information that the department has gathered over many years. There's a unit in the department called the survey, the Spatial Land Information Management Unit, which also where the survey unit is also being hosted, and they do siltation or sedimentation surveys at certain frequencies. The frequencies is being determined by the prevalence of sedimentation. So in some areas, when you do like over a period of 15 years, you've seen that there's been little to no change in the siltation levels. You will have a lesser frequency of surveying the sedimentation in that area. Where it's more higher, you do at a higher frequency because then there's need to do so. So this information is in the department, and our survey colleagues continue religiously to do these surveys so that we have this information that we can actually do this. You will also note that the Vaal River system um, is quite gray, which means that there's lesser prevalence of siltation that will happen in that area. Yet a dam downstream called Boegeberg, which is just south of Uppington in the Orange River, is classified as more than 40% salted, because it means that the majority of salt is carried from the Orange River side, even though the Vaal River is also coming in that space. But should we have had a situation where Boegeberg was designed properly with the necessary functionality of discharge or scouring, that would be a dam that could have been easily be cleansed or cleaned or got rid of the salt if it was properly designed. So we can learn a lot from what we have in terms of engineering, but also in terms of environmental management as we go along. There's a river that is just north of Lesotho that joins up in the Orange River catchment, the Caledon River. And the Caledon River is so highly prone to siltation that it actually caused a situation in the Orange on the in the Free State that have caused Welberdach Dam to be salted 90% at this point in time, to the extent where another dam had to be built in the 80s called Knelpoort Dam, which is an off-channel dam, at high cost of 20 years after the Welbedach Dam was built, meaning that we had to invest millions again in another dam because the other dam has filled up. This is not a situation that we can actually replicate going into the future, that we can simply rebuild dams or raise dam halls or dredge dams as we go along. More of that I will give explanation about later. Can I go to the next slide? The next slide will give you an example in terms of Glen Dam. Now, Glen Dam, as it was built in the 1935, obviously it had no silt in, but then you can see that in 1968, we did the first raising of Glen Dam, and then the siltation levels dropped from 7 to 4.3%. But within a spate of about 10 to 11 years, we've lost that capacity again to siltation. We were back at 7.3%. What was quite evident at the last 10 years of record keeping, there was a decline in as far as siltation is concerned. Now, this was because of a result of two situations. The one would be that the agricultural environment in that area changed tune and things were done a little bit differently, but also because the department started operating dams differently. It was not always understood in the department, but one thing that we are trying to get through to our water control officers is that when it starts raining and there's a flood coming through a a basin, that you don't always want to capture all of that flood immediately after a long dry period, because that is a time when you really should scour the dam and allow some of the siltation to naturally go down the river without any mechanical removal of such salt. In the next example, in the next slide, you will find a second example in terms of the Darlington Dam, which forms part of the Sunday Fish River um, uh, um, government water scheme. So the water that comes from Harib Dam also is being tunneled and conveyed through to Nelson Mandela Bay, and it comes through the Darlington Dam. But we lost a lot more of Darlington Dam's capacity, as can be seen on the screen, that it also went up until beyond 40%. But also in the last 10 years of record keeping, again, you will see a plateauing of the siltation levels. And this would be because of the operations that has actually been also amended. In the next slide, you will find the siltation management strategy that we were looking for. Three elements that we have asked the Water Research Commission to assist us with, because we do believe that the Water Research Commission has the capability of bringing together minds, intelligence, and research, information and knowledge as we go along to actually allow us to consider a situation more circumspect. We have found as a department that when we approach various individuals in the engineering domain, everybody is quite adamant and convinced of his or her own viewpoint of how this should be managed. We thought it'd be best to bring the Water Research Commission on board, to actually bring all minds on board so that we can have a circumspect scientific model that will help us to do storage classification, which will help the department to make a decision between sustainable storage and exhaustive storage. This is a model that we have seen that was used in America by I forgot the name now, by the Reclamation Department. The Reclamation Department in the United States of America that is using a similar decision-making, not the classification rather, where exhaustive dams are left to actually silt up, and then they would build another. Obviously, in South Africa, we also need to be a little bit more circumspect and also a little bit more cost conservative as we go along, but that is what we need from the existing database that we actually have. Then after having the storage classification done, we also need a dam basin operations model, and this will help to minimize the effect of siltation in a more cost-effective way and as well as also in terms of that it must be more effective. But we take cognizance in this as well, that the fact is of this operations model that it cannot be implemented by the department alone. There are the institutions like the catchment management agencies that will fill quite a significant role. The two that we already have in Komati and the Breda Overberg in the Western Cape, that this is where we will expect them to fulfill a much bigger role in the implementation of this operation model. And we trust that they will also form part of this whole decision making as the Water Research Commission will go into it. Also, that the department is busy, and that acronym stands for National Water Resource Infrastructure, which is currently a branch which I take responsibility for now in this temporary basis. But it needs to be morphed into an agency. We all heard that the president has expressed himself quite clearly in the SONA about it, and that is where the department is also working on. And eventually, this siltation management strategy will then form core part of the operations of that agency to ensure that it's being sustained in the dam basins as we go along. But should there be a place where dredging is justified, scientifically so as well as economically so, that it then need to be formulated according to a business model to minimize the cost on actually have this being incorporated in the operations of a specific dam. So it will also have a local economic development kind of side to it, and the principles will be followed to ensure that those who are living, those communities in the close proximity of such a dam, need to benefit from such activities that has to go around it. And this also needs to help the department or which agency will take responsibility for it to also understand which would be the most viable infrastructure technology that should be used. So that is the pragmatic idea behind having a siltation management strategy. Well, the next slide will just then simply say that all of this need to be understood, as I previously said, that the charges for the operations of a government water scheme are funded through the revenue that is generated in that government water scheme. So the water users, they pay for the water. And that tariff is being determined by the indirect and direct cost of actually having that government water scheme in operation. So if the siltation management is going to be an expensive exercise, it will cause a significant increase in tariffs to that community or those water users. And that might not be a quite a palatable scenario to those people who are trying to keep costs low as well. So that is the reason why the principle must always be understood that the cost of siltation management should not exceed the scheme operations affordability levels, because then it will require also cross-subsidization to happen or a dependency on an I don't almost want to say depleted fiscus that is also there, that brings in certain levels of limitations. I think that was my last slide, Chairperson. I wish to thank you then for the opportunity to have addressed you. Thank you very much. All of the best.
Thank you so much, Leonardo. I can imagine that some of you have questions for him that have joined on. On the platform, we do have a facility for you to ask the questions, and we'll endeavor to then answer some of those after our next two speakers have spoken. Now, whether you were here yesterday or not, we are going to reflect on some of the topical points that came up yesterday. So I am joined by two amazing women. Firstly, Lesego Khaikani. She's a chemical engineer by profession, and previously, before joining the Water Research Commission, she was actually part of teams that implemented sustainability projects to improve efficiencies and reduce costs. She is joined by Michelle Histerman, and Michelle has experience in the South African water and environmental sectors. What I found quite incredible about Michelle, she also has passion on research, monitoring, and evaluating training and mentoring around youth professionals, which is quite imperative in our country. In fact, she's so passionate about it that it's what steered her PhD topic. So I hand you over to Lesego and Michelle. I will ask you to please unmute, Lesego.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you have enjoyed the presentations that came through yesterday. So Michelle is going to take you through just a bit of a presentation on Mentimeter, just for interaction and to get the outputs of yesterday. So Michelle, I give it to you.
Thanks, Lesego. Morning, everybody. From a slightly warm in the sun, Pretoria, I'd like to share with you now a presentation. We're going to, in our reflections, actually ask you to interact with us because we'd like to hear from you how you experienced yesterday and some of the insights that you gained. So I'm going to just quickly share my screen, so just give me a second. All right, and what I'm going to ask you to do is the instructions will come up in a second. We are jumping between different platforms. There we go. Share screen. Great. Okay, everybody. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to please go to www.menti.com. And when you get to that site, you can use your phone or you can use your desktop internet. Go to www.menti.com and you are going to use the code 45712103. We've also put the link that takes you directly there into the Q&A. But if you go there, you'll be asked the first question. Thinking about day one, which was yesterday, what are the most important challenges that we need to address when it comes to dam siltation management? So answer those questions. You've got 3 different possible answers that you can put in. And we're going to see how your answers come through. So please take a moment to do that. See, we've got 3 answers there. Tech support, sustainable agricultural practices, landowner engagement. All right. Keep going, everybody. Okay, we'll give that a moment for everyone to keep going, but I'll also just take you and show you what will happen is you will get another question. What was your experience of the National Siltation Symposium yesterday? We'd like to hear back from you so we can continuously improve our engagements with you and our events. So it really supports us when you give us feedback so that we can make these engagements as rich as possible in learning and in taking all the brilliant insights and knowledge and expertise that comes out of this into practice and into implementation. Great. I see some really nice insights coming in. The biggest challenges we need to be addressing. Fantastic. Financing. Financing always comes up. I work more on the ecological infrastructure side where we're trying to come and interact with the built infrastructure and to work together. And financing is the hot topic. Blended financing, different ways of financing. Critical dams. I agree with that. Prioritization. Where do we focus our attention? Where do we go to next? Collaboration coming through strongly. Cooperative governance. Very important. Regenerative practices. Fascinating. That's really important, especially from a catchment perspective and working with our stakeholders. Innovating. Regulation, also important part. Roads, that's important. I like the specific challenges that you get to. Monitoring. So as the questions come in, if there's a duplication, you'll see those words get a bit bigger. So clearly financing, monitoring, and cooperative governance are really important to people. Fantastic, guys. Thank you. Keep them coming. Let's jump over and see what's happening in the next question. There we go. All right, great content was shared. Quite insightful information shared. All right, I'll give people a chance. I think some people are still, for those who joined us a bit late, if you go to www.menti.com and use the code there at the top of my presentation, 45712103, we'd like you to help us by answering a question and reflecting on yesterday's sessions. So thinking about day one, what are the most important challenges that we need to address when it comes to dam siltation management? We would love to hear from you. And then once you're done with that, you will jump to another question and share with us what was your experience of the symposium yesterday. Excellent insights. Dr. Frank Denay's presentation on dam classification made me realize the importance of such a model to preserve the natural environment. Fantastic. We also like those specific insights as well, because it means we can see where does people's interest lie? Where would you like to find out more? So when you're talking about your experience, you can also share what was a highlight for you, what you would like to hear more about. Transdisciplinary efforts. Great. A wide range of issues. I hope this isn't in the way of the presentation. Let me move it up a bit. Excited to see the various presenters and the platform. Someone didn't attend yesterday. I also only attended various sessions. I was on the road. But from what I did see, it looked super interesting. It's a whole catchment issue, not just large dam specific. Long overdue, fantastic. What I love about this is that we're seeing the gray and the green coming together so beautifully. I learned more about dredging, a black box before. Great. Let me jump back a bit. Let's see what our word cloud's looking like now. Tools, great, love that. Tools are the way that we start to get towards implementation, get towards action. Policy regulations. And if things come up for you during the day today, give it some thought. This Mentimeter will be live throughout the day. So if you continue to have reflections, please go and add in your reflections. If you can't think of anything right now, we'll definitely be using this word cloud and use it as a reflection tool. And we will definitely share with our events team. It helps us also shape what we'll do with you next. Okay, let's have a look again. Our experiences. Frustrating loss of connection. Yeah, that is a challenge. And I know Lesego had mentioned there was a discussion going on, and unfortunately there was a technical glitch where we lost you. Oh, I like that. Relationship between sedimentation and climate change. I was actually in the Western Cape early this week, and we were having a look. There have been floods in the Western Cape in certain parts. And we're definitely starting to see these droughts and then very heavy rainfall in slightly different times of the year than previously. So we're experiencing climate change right now, and how do we react to that in terms of dam siltation and wetland management and riverine management? So we were on the ground really working as a collaboration of DWS, SANBI, Water Research Commission, the Breede Gourits Catchment Management Agency. We were in the mud, in the wetland, trying to grapple with this. And what we really hope is next time we'll be there with our dam siltation managers, trying to grapple with this, and with all of you. Many people are also aiming towards cooperative governance. It speaks volumes, all around, very informative. This is fantastic, guys. Thank you. Commitment from our leaders, so important. We're in a multi-layered system, and we need to address these problems at all layers. With the heart being those of us as people living in these catchments. Yeah, some frustration with the presentations being cut off. We are looking at that. We'll definitely make sure that we do our best to make sure it doesn't happen again. Dredging was the best. I feel like I missed that. Looks fascinating. I'd also like to learn more about that. Focus on the involvement of youth. So important. And you know, when we have a session a bit later on the skills development aspects and the training side of this project, as well as the ecological infrastructure for water security project, where we are looking at the role of youth in dam management, water quality, quantity monitoring. It's probably the most important thing, I think. Personally, I'm very biased. It's my passion. Great. Okay, I'm going to give it another 2 minutes, Lesego. And maybe you can also just jump in with reflections. I'm sure people are tired of hearing my voice. Maybe jump back to the word cloud. Looking good. Upslope erosion control. Awesome. Technicians in field. Oh, yes. Love taking people into field. That's where the magic happens. When you're knee deep in the mud or the silt. Great, great, great. Okay, everybody. Just check if there's anything new. Really great to have your insights as part of our reflections. Thank you, everybody. I think what we are really trying to strive towards is to make sure that our events are interactive and that you have your say in them, because with online, it's a bit more difficult. But some really, really great insights, and we will take all of those forward and share them with our teams on the dam siltation management strategy, as well as with the other projects, the many projects that we've got going on. So please keep sharing your insights. You can either go to menti.com and share them there, or you are welcome to contact us at the WRC, and we will take them up. Myself or Lesego will take them up. Coastal erosion. Oh, all through the catchment, eh? Got to look at the full catchment picture. What I think we'll do, Lesego, is if Lesego has some really great insights that she'd like to share. And if we still have some time to use, let me know. And I can also share a catchment picture and invite another 5 minutes of interaction on a different question. So let me know what you think, Lesego, but let's just see how much time we have. I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I think it's great insight and feedback that we're getting from our delegates. And I think what we have here resonates with what I captured on the platform yesterday. I think some of the topics that are coming out in terms of the lessons, the highlights and the challenges that people are seeing are also what I also saw yesterday. So I think I just want to also highlight some of the stuff in terms of financing, which came very strongly today and yesterday, how there is a need for sustainable financing resources. And I think that's quite important for us to be able to finance these interventions that we're coming up with. So through sub-project 2, we are looking at various financial arrangements within South Africa in terms of what we'll be able to assist us in implementing these interventions. So that is some great insight that is going to be coming from the project. And also how often we've seen that dredging is a last resort because of obviously people have assumed that it's quite cost intensive in terms of the energy that's required, as well obviously the logistics with transporting some of the sediment that's removed from these dams. So we'll be looking at how we do it sustainably. And I'm glad that people are interested and are seeing that it's not a last resort, that it's part of some of the management tools and interventions that we can look at holistically. And as you said, and as has mentioned right now, is that a collaborative approach is quite important where all government spheres, private sector, and institutions are coming together to actually work and solve these challenges that we're experiencing. And it's something that has been highly iterated yesterday. And it's something that we as a program and as the WRC would love to see. And that's essentially what the project is about, to see different minds and different people from all spheres of the water sector coming together to solve this issue and saying that this is what we're doing. How can we learn from what they've implemented and learn from their experiences? I think another thing that also came through the presentations yesterday was how policy is important to make sure that siltation management is effectively implemented. And I think it's quite critical that we use these policies that we have in our respective countries, particularly us as South Africa. We've got good policies in place. We just need to make sure that we use them appropriately and so that we are able to effectively implement these projects. So I'm glad that there has been so much impact and so much things that people are learning from the symposium. And we certainly are going to take some of the inputs and recommendations that you have brought forward to us in making sure that this program is actually implemented successfully. So as Michelle says, we'll keep on taking your inputs from the Mentimeter throughout the course of the day, and we'll feed back to you during the course of the day in terms of what are some of the stuff that are coming up. So thank you very much, and we certainly hope that you enjoy the rest of the presentations that are going to come through today, and thank you.
Thank you so much to you, Lesego and Michelle. Just so for your benefit, Michelle, because you didn't attend everything else, and also for the delegate that says they only found out about the symposium yesterday, we have recorded everything. Will be available on the platform until the end of May. So do not despair, we've got you. So you can just access it there. We also showed a video yesterday on the program, and that will be available on the WRC YouTube channel. So please go through there and you'll be able to access that as well as of today. Now, we do have a few questions, and Leonardo, thanks for staying on the line. Some of them are directed at you, and I'd like to go straight into the questions. So the first question we have on the portal, this is for you, Leonardo. It says, how much effort is put into the source of silt from the catchment? Okay, we seem to be facing some technical issues. While we try and get Leonardo back online, this is the beauty of virtual events. You never know what you're going to.
How much effort? If I can just repeat that question again.
Okay. Okay, Leonardo, I think we will try again. Let's allow you the opportunity to connect and get a better connection. I'm going to come through to you then, Lesego, with the second question. It's quite clear that, you know, with water is a source of life, but water also contributes to the economy. And Michelle, I'm going to pose the same question after I've posed it to Lesego. We saw yesterday that you do have graduates that are put in place when it comes to the siltation program. But outside of those graduates, how do the youth access you, and how will this all create jobs for them? You're on mute, Lesego, just unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. So I think, as you say, that water is crucial to life. And what we are going to be generating through this program is learning material and tools that could be used throughout by professionals and students so that they are able to learn with us as we are implementing this project. So part of sub-project 4 is establishing certain tools and certain training workshops so that we're able to capacitate people along with the journey that we're going through, as well as transferring skills, because it's all important for us to implement certain projects, but then we need to make sure that there is institutional capacity that's left within people that are able to take the journey through and implement these interventions. Thank
Michelle,
you.
Obviously a very big passion point for you. So do you want to give us an answer? How else will we give them access to help the youth through this?
So it's a really important question, Tami. And at the moment, there are quite a few wonderful internship opportunities for young people as they exit out of school. We also have some efforts on career guidance, and I think we need to continue to place more efforts on that, interact with our young people in school before they make their selections for careers. And so, like I was saying earlier, it's like an onion. We have to understand the full system. So both at school level, at university level, career guidance is so important. What should you be studying? But also to make sure that our curriculums are adapting. If you look at engineering curriculums, how can we make sure that we've got this holistic perspective of the catchment, that you cannot address dam siltation on its own without interacting with other sectors in a full catchment. So we need to come in at various different ways to support the youth. And then I think internship programs are so important so that you can get that experience on the ground. And just a bit later, I think it would be really useful for those who are young and interested in career paths in this dam siltation, is to see how Award is structuring their skills program so that it's an accredited training that you can build up your qualifications, you can move, and you can have a career pathway. And so it's good for you to understand how each qualification becomes part of the puzzle piece that gets you to where you want to go. And to do that career path mapping with mentors is so important. So find a mentor, go out there and look towards your leaders, and you'll be surprised how many, when you reach out, are willing to be there to support you in your journey. So there's many different ways, and we definitely here at the WRC are here to support you. So reach out to us, and we'll guide you as best as we can.
Thank you so much for that. I think one of the topics that came up quite strongly as well, and I'll stay with you, Michelle, is on the monitoring. I think that's actually the biggest word that was coming up. So let's stick on that. How is this all going to be monitored, and how is it phased out to say we're still within target, we're still within reach, we're not lagging behind with the project? What's being put into place for the monitoring?
So I think Lesego could speak specifically on the monitoring of the dam siltation management, but it's I just want to say that it is so amazing that you mentioned monitoring is coming out so much, because literally when I was in the field in the last 2 days in the wetlands with our various different departments, the biggest challenge that comes up is monitoring. So it's not just a challenge for dam siltation, it's a challenge for wetland ecosystem monitoring, for water quality, water quantity monitoring, and that it cannot only, the capacity for doing that within, say, the CMAs and DWS, it needs to be extended into support and collaboration in this monitoring with our landowners. And so really critical here is citizen-based monitoring. So citizen science is absolutely critical. And how are we supporting our citizens to support us in understanding the picture? We also need our baselines. So we need to understand what is the situation now, what was it historically, so that we can see change over time. And a mix of both that quantitative, and it can be an ecological monitoring, together with the social interaction monitoring. So more the qualitative. For example, how does a farmer see the system changing over time? What were his reflections a few years ago, and what are the reflections now? So we have to capture those stories. Those narratives of change are equally important as the quantitative. Yeah, but maybe Lesego has some insights as well from the monitoring in the actual sub-projects of siltation project.
Thank you, Michelle. So Tammy, what we've built into the program is how we're going to be monitoring the impact is with the pilot phase that we're going to be implementing in phase 2, is the way we're going to be seeing how applicable are our tools and our models that have been developed by the sub-project within the first phase, whether they are correctly applicable, whether we need to tweak some of them in terms of the models that have been developed. So in that pilot phase, that's where we'll be testing out whether the strategy that we've implemented is actually okay and it's actually right for the South African climate. And where then there's need changes that to be made, we'll be implementing those changes so that by the time we go into phase 3, where we're implementing everything, that we've already taken stock and taken comments and from our stakeholders in terms of the dam managers, the catchment agencies, and everybody within the spectrum in terms of what actually works out there, so that we're just not implementing something that we as researchers think that it's going to work without actually testing out into the sector and getting inputs, as well as with the skills programs as well. We're getting comments and we're also testing it out in terms of stakeholders and expertise who are giving us inputs in terms of what is already out there, what is working, and how we should actually tailor make these qualification skills programs that we are developing through the program to make sure that by the time we actually implement everything and we take it through to the market, it's applicable, it's right, and it's workable. So that it's not just some documents or some tools that are sitting in some place where people aren't able to access them, people aren't able to work with them. And with the tools that we are going to be developing, it's going to be user-friendly, and it's going to be, some of them are going to be Excel-based so that people are able to actually work appropriately with them instead of just developing software tools that are going to be costing a lot for people to use. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's see if we have Leonardo back with his connection. Hi, Leonardo. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Perfect. Fantastic. Okay. The beauty of technology, right, Leonardo? So we have a question for you that says, how much effort is being put into the source of silt from the catchment?
To source salt from the catchment is, or what is it?
How much?
Okay, in terms of
to source the salt from the catchment, how much effort is being put into that?
At this point in time, I think that in not much in terms of to actually, if I understand the question correctly, in terms of getting the salt out of the basin of the dam, the only effort we currently have, or what we have to our disposal at this point in time, is covering in high flow time, and that is then releasing it downstream. So it will take decades to get salt through a whole river system. If we take a system like the Orange River, that is quite a length of time. But then you also see that what's happening in Harib Dam is normally at the tail end of the dam, so where the water, the velocity of the river is actually declining rapidly as the water enters the storage. That's there where siltation is most prevalent. But we have not started to actually take it out there. What we have done, like in the instance of the Mzambugu project that was yesterday raised by, I think, is Marikizela that made mention in the chat room about it, yesterday. In terms of what we are trying to do now is that with new dam design, is that we also take hands with other departments such as the Department of Environmental Affairs, Land Development, Land Reform Development, in terms of agriculture, to implement strategies to minimize erosion. And that is also helping us then to actually limit it. So with those type of relationships, it will help us to actually minimize, but using the silt in that space at this point in time, not so much. But I think through the classification also of the silt, the monitoring of that quality, it presents the opportunity to actually use the silt perhaps for other purposes. But this is all futuristic that we are talking about, not current time practice.
Mm-hmm. So just on the monitoring, we do have another question on that. Does the hyperspectral satellite surveillance then assist with monitoring the siltation at the moment?
Yeah, as I mentioned in my presentation, that the surveillance is being done as a program in the department. It's part of the department's operating philosophy at this point in time, where our unit called Spatial Land Information Management is periodically also then surveying the sediment in various dams that are sediment prone, so that we can keep the record. So that those two graphs that I mentioned was basically done for the perspective of, was actually generated from data that we got through that monitoring that has been done over many years. It is not something that we've started. As you have seen, that in 1935 we already had these records. So it's historic records that's in the department. So that monitoring is part of its operations. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Leonardo. I think we'll cap it at that because we are running out of time. Michelle, just one more question. Somebody did ask here on the platform, are we using elderly people who are retired with the knowledge to then assist and train the youth in this regard?
Another great question. Such an important part of that. And I actually experienced that in the Umhlatuzi, where a retired dam manager became a crucial part of a project in supporting us getting things off the ground. But later on, we'll have a session on skills, on capacity and social change. An award will present on the project. I'd encourage you to go to that. Award will present on how they're making sure that there's a community of practice and a community of experts, and that includes those with the many years of built up experience and expertise, who can be the backbone of our qualifications. So while we still have the formal training, we also have the support and this mentorship built in behind the scenes of the skills programs. So I'd encourage you to go to that so that you can find out a bit more. And if you are a retired expert in this field, please reach out to us. We'd love to encourage you to become more part of this program, so that our next generation of dam siltation managers and network and catchment managers are really supported and can lead us forward.
Well, we have somebody here, not quite a question, but a comment, and I think we need to mention it. He's a lecturer and at TUT, and he says he's very grateful for the symposium. At TUT at the moment, they're incorporating the latest research into their syllabus, actually. So maybe you can then engage with him outside the platform to discuss this further. We're doing really well for time, and at this stage, I'm going to ask all of you that are watching to please go to your timeline, as we will be watching the presentations of Professor Sameer Khantush, and straight after that, we'll go into the presentation of Dr. Bridget Shaddock. I will then speak to you just before we go into tea break. Do enjoy.